Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of Mint's Clarity Through Debate. The topic before us is reviving real estate, triggers beyond monetary policy. So let me cut to the chase and just take off from where our topic very clearly says that looking beyond RBI's 13 or 14 rate, 13 rate hikes that they have done. So whether they've taken the juice out of the real estate boom. Kidambar, I would like you to.
Nobody can take the juice out of the real estate demand, let me put it like that. The demand is very real. You have the numbers to prove it. Statistics say that there's a shortfall of 23 million houses in urban India, maybe 24 now. RBI cannot take the juice out of the demand because what has happened is because of the rate hike, somebody who was just going to buy that house may have just become a fence sitter for the time being. Keeping in mind that at some point in time, the RBI has to do a rate cut and come back to the levels that we saw a year and a half ago. So there's no cause for concern or worry as far as that goes because there is a real demand.
Manish, as a lender, do you share this perspective that what he set the mood that there is no let-up in demand despite the interest rate hikes? But you are in the business of actually financing these homes. But do you see, do you share their point of view?
First up, I agree, I think there is no let-up in demand. Okay. But then, demand by itself is just an isolated way of looking at it. The question is, whether the real estate industry needs to be revived or not is dependent on whether you have the right kind of product mix to meet the kind of demand that is coming up. Nobody can deny the fact that across most of the urban centers, the true barometer of measuring how many property transactions are happening, which is property registrations, are down. That's real statistics from the property registration offices. We've all heard of the 26 million figure in terms of shortage of homes across urban India. Fact of the matter is, only 6 million of this demand is actually in the upwards of 10 lakh property category. The balance 21 million, which is a whopping about 80%, is actually in the property category of less than 10 lakhs. So yes, the demand exists, but are the right kind of product mixes sort of coming in to satisfy that demand? Is interest rates sort of having an effect on demand? I think to a certain extent, but to a marginal extent in my view. I think the buyer is actually waiting for the right kind of price point before he buys in. And the point that I would like to make here is that in the housing finance business, a majority of borrowing actually happens at interest rates which are floating. So borrowers know that interest rates which are probably at a high level now, when they come down, with all the work that is being done by the RBI in terms of providing fairness to borrowers, they are now quite confident of the fact that the pricing will be repegged when the interest rates come down. Okay. So they're only floating rate loans. There are no floating rate property purchases.
This, your kind of macro perspective, like you've seen this, the engagement, very clearly the developers say there's no let-up in demand. So, but what is your overall, like a macro perspective of this?
I think the key point which Manish has brought out is good because the point is that what is the type of product that we want to buy? It may not be 1 to 4 crores or whatever it is. It could be even much lower. And the affordable housing that we are looking for, that may be a segment where one could focus much more. And affordable, there's no definition. Obviously in a metro town, it's much higher than what it would be in a non-metro or tier 4 or tier 3. So there's really no definition, but one has to really cater to what that middle income or that income group is looking at buying, and then you can see some demand.
We'll come to this very key aspect of this low-cost housing. But then are you, Kidambar, are you telling me that you as a developer, or all three of you, have no problems? It's all well. It's a question of time, and everything will be back to square one.
See, Anil, there are two things which I'd like to bring on the table here. One, most of the data that the media gets is from listed companies. In the entire spectrum of real estate, only 6% companies are listed. Their story may not be the same as the balance 94% developers. Second thing is, whenever we speak of real estate, we speak of Mumbai or Delhi or NCR or maybe Bangalore. The whole country it's very big and there's real estate happening across the country. But the person who wants to buy a flat or an apartment or property today has to shell out more money as an EMI. So our representation to the RBI is that, by doing these consecutive rate hikes, there has been no significant slowdown in our construction process. But yes, the buyer is suffering. And like you said, he's taking a floating rate, and he's expecting the rate to come down in due course of time.
But aren't you also impacted? Because if I raise the overall interest rate in this scenario in this country, your cost of funds are also going up,
Absolutely.
Right?
But
so is that hurting
who
you?
bears it? Who bears our increased cost of fund? It is the buyer. Any cost which is put on the developer by means of an increased rate hike, it is eventually borne by the customer. The bank, the government has to understand that.
I don't know, maybe very counterintuitive. I keep coming back to this. I seem to be missing a trick on this, that everything seems to be very fine, but that's not the ground reality. I think I'll leave it there. But good point that there is no let-up in demand. But the issue is, how do you manage the other side of it? Don't go away. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. We are discussing today reviving real estate, triggers beyond monetary policy. Manish, I want to, if you could come in with the point that you made, because I want to bring in Romi to this product mix which you talked of, this, that you need to mix it up. You just can't be giving this high margin. You will need to go to low cost. I think two speakers, we just come back to you. What do you think? Do you think the time is ripe and going forward, you can only look at mixed and smaller margin, low-cost housing, or what you call micro-housing?
There are a couple of points that link to what I just said. When I said product mix, I meant that there is a lot of visibility that you see around real estate these days is about offering a product which has got all the bells and whistles, whereas the customer is simply wanting to have a modest roof over his head. And if you can take the frills out and give it to him at the very basic price or at the price at which he can afford, I think there are going to be takers for that. There has to be, I think, there is a desire to sort of have a kind of a quasi-brand positioning through the kind of products that you bring out. So if the project has got a whole lot of amenities, it's got a whole lot of bells and whistles, it also automatically then is seen as a rub-off on the brand of the developer. I think these two things have to be divorced.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. How do you address that? I mean,
one thing I'll totally agree. There is a big question about product mix. We have planners here also. What are we doing even today? We, across the country, we are only dependent upon the old 1962 and NBC guidelines, bylaws, and that Punjab Scheduled Road Act and all, under which we have defined FARs and densities, and they simply don't permit creation of smaller houses.
Romi, sorry to have kept you out of the debate for so long.
I enjoyed it.
Okay. This whole issue on product mix, you as an urban planner, can you set out the philosophy for us? Like, how do you see it and the urgency of it, that it has to happen now?
I think there was a report done by Monitor Group a couple of years back, which exactly gives these figures of 21 million for below, I think these people earn about 5,000 to 10,000 rupees a month. Imagine earning 10,000 rupees a month and trying to buy a house. So, and there are many people who actually earn 5,000 rupees a month, and they are looking at various options like rental housing, as well as, maybe 15,000, 10,000, they're looking for some sort of ownership. Now, we have to address that. Earlier, I think the earlier master plan, what was the intention was that affordable housing, little bit developers and the private sector will do, and most of it government will provide. This has not worked because the demand has escalated so much with rapid urbanization, which happens whenever a country industrializes. This is something that we in DDA are trying really hard to find the solution, that how do we make developers get attracted to creation of affordable housing stock. So there could be many ways, like maybe increasing the supply or giving them, rather than giving them one plot of land, giving them like 50 plots of land to do affordable housing. So more land, I don't know if that will work. If not, okay, we can try other modes. Then if sharing of amenities, right now the bylaws are like that you do a certain complex with a certain amount of 15% FAR for affordability, and you have your own gated community with a shared park, with unshared parks, unshared amenities. But if you have more shared amenities, then can you bring down the cost of affordable housing? So can you cross-subsidize certain things for that and provide it? So, I mean,
Pietambar,
maybe there are some
you're up to
ideas
this
that can come
challenge?
out.
No, absolutely. In fact, let's talk of that pyramid of demand again, right? And Manish very rightly said, most of the demand exists at the bottom and towards the middle, 10 lakhs and below. The tragedy is that when that person wants to buy, a house for 5 lakhs in a tier 4 location, he goes to a bank for a home loan. He says, "Tumhara wo kidhar hai? Income proof." He says, "I don't have it. Yeah, I'm a daily wager. But I can pay your installment." Microfinance is one success story based on this guy. Bank says, "I can't lend it to you." There's a huge demand there, but where does he get that money from? He doesn't get money from anywhere. So we went to various banks. We went to NHP. They said, we have a mortgage scheme now. In the last budget, they came up with a mortgage guarantee of 1,000 crores. But all banks are totally at a loss when it comes to funding that person who needs that 5 lakh or 7 lakh rupee house. We went to the Ministry of Poverty Alleviation that you should increase. Okay, if he doesn't get a loan, where does he get that margin of 25% or 30% to pitch in? So you increase the subsidy on his, don't give anything to the developer. The developer has to go to such locations because, it's a lovely place to be in because the demand is so robust that you can continue business for the next 20, 25 years, no problem.
No, but is it commercially viable?
Yes.
It is?
It is commercially viable. But it doesn't sell because the guy doesn't have money to buy it. The banks don't give him a loan. That is the tragedy.
But if you, I was just chatting offline with Manish, and there's a market solution emerging. Could you share
I'd love to hear that if there is.
In fact, he just walked me through.
Because I spoke to Mr. Verma and he said, we are working on something, but there's nothing today.
I think there's been a fair bit of traction on this from NHB, to be fair to them.
Yeah.
And I think Pietambar makes a very valid point. You go down to some of the smaller centers, you find these perfectly honest borrowers wanting to buy a small house which will suffice for their needs, but nobody willing to lend to them. But I think we can now say at this juncture with a great degree of confidence that that bit of inconvenience or difficulty is being taken out of the equation very quickly. Because, we are a company which are dedicated to financing low-income housing, affordable housing in what we call the informal sector of the economy, which doesn't have income papers. Clearly, the models of assessment for such customers are very different from what you would do, as you rightly mentioned, looking at people and their livelihoods and sort of constructing their cash flows. So over a period of the next few years, I think with not only us, but a number of other companies also being in action, that is increasingly going to go out of the equation. So credit is available. There are companies which are developing specialized models to assess credit. And therefore, that same pyramid of demand or that huge demand at the bottom, which I talked about, is going to be increasingly possible to cater to by people who have what it takes to do that kind of construction.
But can I make a point on that?
Yeah, please.
Which is very honestly said, because we went to the bigger banks. They said we'd rather do one loan of 35 lakhs than do 7 loans of 5 lakhs. Yeah, you are dealing with 7 times more people. So, okay, that's a space, but we will go there in due course. But I hope you mean what you say and you will be funding people in that space.
Okay, well, I have a portfolio to show for it.
Lovely.
Don't go away. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Great. We kind of moving to some element of consensus. Great launchpad to go vertical on this whole debate, where I interrupted you at that phase. Could you just, what as developers, I want all three of you to comment on the same related issue, that is it worthwhile for you to go vertical, including this low-cost housing as a component?
I'll tell you. Now, what makes the cost to a house? First thing is cost of land, cost of licensing, cost of construction, and the profit margin which a developer takes, and the cost of money. Cost of money is just one component. The biggest component across India, which is a cause of concern, is cost of land. Now, if you are able to make judicious use of that, that itself can help reduce price to a certain extent. And the solution lies in increasing the FAR and the density norms. Now, here you don't have to do anything. Planners have to simply provide better planning on the front of the infrastructure. You have to give wider sewerage lines, wider water lines, and accessibility, transportation network. You have to design according to that only. That does not cost as much of money.
So, Gitambar, like in this whole debate, like how do you tackle an issue like waste disposal, which is a real issue? So, as a developer, what will be your inputs to say, Romy, about fixing this? At this point, it's all centralized. So, you cart the waste from one end of the city to another. How do you fix that? How do you kind of create a more sustainable waste disposal?
See, where there is development already existing and where the sewerage system is old and it cannot be redone. And if we say we have STPs and we'll treat the entire sewage system over here, it's not going to happen. You can do new infrastructure in a new location, not in an existing place. Otherwise, it's a Herculean task to do it in an existing development. If you have a land, let's say you have 1,000 hectares of land, over there you can make new infrastructure. And over there you can do what Vidur says, plan 150 acres for 10 lakhs and below. That can be done there. But you cannot just increase the density and FAR in the middle of the city, like in GK1 or GK2, and say, okay, fine, let's go vertical. You can't do that. It's not going to happen. Nobody can dispose their own sewer just with an STP. It has to go to the main STP of the city, of the municipal corporation.
So this we can look at only in greenfield.
You can look at greenfield.
I do want to say one more thing though. Like when you go higher density, actually decentralized infrastructure becomes feasible, which is not feasible in low density development. So if you go to say an FAR 6 or 8 and you have a very high population, you actually create more sewage, and you can your efficiency of recycling goes up. You can actually have decentralized infrastructure.
So you can actually treat it within the...
Absolutely, Pitambar, yes. You can do that.
You can.
And there's one more point I wanted to make, that this whole idea of going and taking huge amount of land and doing one income group or two low income groups in a large area is not something we are looking at, because we don't want to create another Seelampur, another Simapuri. What happens is that you create a ghetto of poverty, and that generates crime. So if you go to East Delhi, for example, it's a very good example of how mix has coexisted. Like Mayur Vihar, Patparganj, then Anand Vihar, these areas, you actually have extremely poor people living within a kilometer of you, and it's one of the safest area. All these people, the rapists may be living there, but they are not doing the crime there. They go somewhere else. So it's actually safe because it's all mixed income, and they this thing. So we, as a policy, we oppose taking up large acres of land with single income group. It should be mixed.
Maybe, I think she has a great point there. Maybe she's absolutely right, because we are only thinking at one part of the problem. She's looking at it from a very socialist.
The whole idea is that the government needs to, when I mean 150 acres, doesn't mean together. You need to create pockets of them spread all over, of course, with a mixed land use. And let me give you an example. We had a large development. I don't want to state which state it was. Large development, and we had a sewage treatment plant. Now, this development was getting filled up. Now, we had an issue that we didn't have enough sewage to run the sewage treatment plant, because it takes time for any development to get filled up. So I went to the city and I said, I want to tap into your sewage system. Now, there's a sewage system which was filled with sewage, overflowing. I wanted to tap into it as an architect and a developer and pull back the sewage. They all laughed at me. They said, are you kidding me? I mean, you want to pull back sewage from other people into your development? I said, yes. So they came back and said, there's no provision as such. We can tell you how much we'll charge you to put it in, but we can't tell you how much you're going to charge to put it out. So I said, what do I do? He said, pump reverse karke laga lo. So, I mean, can you imagine? Here I'm trying to resolve it, and I'll give you an example. In Leicester Square in London, they are pulling in all the sewage of central London, putting up in a heap, putting up a tank which is going to have fish, which is going to eat up the sewage, clean up water for public drinking, and using that sewage as heat as we talk.
Manish, how do you see this? This whole idea of because round tripping is a serious thing. So better connectivity between urban and rural areas, so people are not actually living here necessarily that long.
Yeah, in an ideal world, things can be very different. I think we have to start with what we have right now. I think there is, to my mind, no other solution but to go, as I would use the phrase, moderately vertical. You can't build skyscrapers because your infrastructure for a particular locality is already set. You have to decide how much more can that particular area take, and then decide how much vertical you want to go.
Thank you very much. That is a wonderful debate. Keep watching Men's Clarity Through Debate.